Hold on.
Hi, I'm George Linning, proud owner of Sunshine and Gray Line Bait Tanks. First of all, I'd like to talk to you about the Sunshine Bait Tank. I'd like to talk to you about the Gray Line Bait Tanks. The Gray Line Bait Tanks is a tank that does all of the things necessary to keep bait alive. The main three are that you must aerate, you must remove the scales, and you must control the temperature. The Gray Line Bait Tank was a fully insulated tank, roto-molded, and meaning that it has two walls of different polyethylene with a foamation in between it. And the filtration is done by a pickup tube that all the scales are moved to the top of the tank and separated with the filtration system, and then gravitationally falls back into the tank with the aerated water. Now, one thing that we have done is because of the, it's easy to put oxygen in water whenever the water's cold. It's really difficult when it gets warm. So we've added this second aeration pump that literally makes the Gray Line tank a tank that can hold unbelievable amounts of bait that people had never even dreamed was possible before. We've probably increased our capacity by over 40%. The thing that we have with the Gray Line tank is that we have 4 footprints that are available. We have the smallest being a 24 inches long, 16 inches wide, the largest being a 36 inch long, 24 inches wide, and they vary in heights to come out the deal. We also have a 22 inch diameter round tank. All tanks are capable of being fitted with either one pump or with a dual aeration pump. The dual aeration I certainly recommend that you put in because that even though you won't need it in the wintertime, you will need it in the summertime whenever the temperature gets warmer. The thing that it is, it's very easy to put oxygen in the water when it's cold. It's very difficult to put oxygen in the water when it gets warmer. And so by doing the second pump, we're able to add that extra amount of oxygen to it. I wouldn't even recommend you use that pump in the wintertime.
So how many shad can I get in your various sizes of your tank?
Well, our little tank, our little 17-gallon tank, which is the smallest one that we make in the roto-molded tank, you can carry 100 to 125 bait in it very nicely. I'm talking about, when I say bait, I'm talking about bait that's 3.5 to 4 inches long. I've had people tell me that in the 50-gallon tank, that they've held as high as 625 3 to 3.5 inch shad and kept them all day long. This particular guide had a trip, he had 18 people.
Wow.
And he said, I got my bait at about 4 o'clock in the morning, and he said, threw away them when after the final trip, threw them back about 80 bait, and he says they were in the greatest shape as whenever I caught them.
That's
I've had
amazing.
another gentleman tell me that he had 550 5.5 inch threadfin shad that he kept in it, but he didn't say that the length of time, but he said he kept them in there, and he says he looked in the tank and it looked black because of the backs of the shad. So the ability to hold the amount of bait you need is tremendous in this tank. And if you're going to plan to try to keep your bait so for multiple days, I recommend that you do what we call a flush job, that you pump out about 60% of the water and replace it with good, well-treated water as you go back and trying to maintain somewhat the same temperature of the water you take out, because we don't want to put these little fellers in shock. Now then, we've gone through that. You've thrown the net, you worked very hard to get your bait, now you want to make sure that you keep them in good shape. There are several bait tanks on the market. They call them bait tanks. The key to having a good bait tank, as I said before, you must aerate, you must filtrate, and you must control the temperature. You can add the chemicals to help along the way of this, but there's no substitution for removing the scales out of the water. As a shad will ingest his own scales, and it'll kill them. They lose they lose any energy, and then what you want with a shad when you put it down is a lively shad that is wiggly, trying to get away, causing flash, and that's what helps the bait strike it. Odor and flash is the biggest thing that a shad will produce for this to get bait. I mean, to get fish, is that we need as much visual the showing as we possibly can, and again, we want to keep the scales on the fish.
So tell me a little about some of the features of this wonderful
The
tank
features
here.
of the Gray Line tank are this: is that we on our newest model of their small model, we made it with a solid lid, which works a dual place. We made this for a smaller boat, and which means that you can even use this as a seat. It's strong enough to hold up the average person and in good shape. We have a latch on it that you can latch it, and it latches very nicely and keeps the water from sloshing out on anyone else.
By the way, on my tank, two people sit on it. I have one, and two of us, myself and my girlfriend.
I've seen your beautiful girlfriend, and I can understand why you don't want her sitting close to you. I
Thank
don't blame you. Good for you. The tank is on the Gray Line tank. It has a built-in splash edge that comes all the way around the tank, and that prevents the water from sloshing up and out. I'm not saying that you're not going to get little seepage, but you will. It certainly will control it. You're looking down now at the aeration system, the second pump of the aeration system into this tank here. What happens is it sucks the air in from the side through this valve down into the bottom of the pump, and it shoots the aerated water back into it. Now, I recommend that you point this thing here towards the back, to where that you don't have a
jet of water.
a jet of water. Then you control the amount of current you have. Some people think you need current. I personally think that you need aeration, filtration, and current is just a secondary thing, because you don't want to work your bait to death trying to survive.
They'll run out of energy to swim.
That's right. So what we do is we take in the tank, we provide you with the two foams to go into it, and you put the foam down, and you talk to your girlfriend or your wife, whoever that you can sweet talk into, and you take your foam, cut a pattern of polyfill that's just slightly larger than your foam, put it down onto your tank, into the bait well, with the foam, with the stay fill up. Whenever you get one of the top layer, I use at least 3 layers of stay fill, and sometimes 4. When you get to the top, when it's saturated with scales, you just simply roll it up like an old-time cigarette, discard it and put it into the trash can. Be sure and put it in the trash can, because this will really contaminate our streams. We don't want that.
Yeah, that's right. That'd be better.
Then you're left with the other layers to keep going with it. Now, if in the event that you get this tank and you've used up all your layers, simply do one thing: just unplug your pumps, put some new into it, start all over again. Replug in your pump. The Gray Line tanks has a fill line. It's absolutely necessary that you fill the water up to that fill line.
See, there's a marker on that. It says fill level.
And we must fill it to that level.
Minimum or just
minimum?
Minimum.
Minimum to that. Now, that in the event that you once you get your pump running, and if you don't ever turn your power off to your pump, you can, if you wish, you can remove some of that water out of there It is, you've made prime, so to speak, on your pump, and it'll continue to operate. The footprints that we have in the Gray Line tank, as I said, are made for every size of boat that is on the market that we know of, from a John boat up to the larger boats. The guides on Lake Texoma basically use the 50-gallon tank. They do that because they want to hold a lot of bait, and they sometimes will run a double trip. And we found that getting bait early in the morning is about the best time in the world to get bait. Not saying that you can't get it in the daytime, but we found that in the dark times it's a lot easier to get bait.
So, tell us a little about what you do for adding salt to the water and any other additives maybe that you might.
Well, the thing that I have found that if you use, I use my tank, and I charge my tank with tap water, with city water. If you have well water, you've got the world of the best of all the worlds. But if you use tap water, you must use a liquid chlorine remover of some sort. You've got to get that chlorine out of the water, because chlorine will burn the gills of your bait, and they'll die within 30 minutes. And after you work for hours to get them, you certainly don't want to lose them to that. So I use a salt. You can buy the salt from Stock Salt, and it's a 50-pound bag. It's about $5. I know some people that use saltwater salt, and I don't know the cost of it or how well it works. The thing one that I found that's very handy is I buy from Walmart a salt, and it says this salt does not supply iodide.
The iodine will kill them.
Iodide is not good. It's good for humans, not good for fish. But I use it. It's easy to carry. If it gets a little clumpy, so we just break it open and put half of it in. Now, the other item that I use is a product called Shad Keeper. Shad Keeper to me is a Gatorade for bait. We know that if we're hot, we can take a glass of water, and the water will quench our thirst a little bit. But if we're really, really hot and we're really tired and we need a little boost of energy, we take a little Gatorade or something like that, and it'll boost our energy. Same thing I feel that this is with the Shad Keeper. Now, I use Shad Keeper in a little lesser quantity than the manufacturer recommends. I use 1 cup of Shad Keeper in a 30-gallon tank, and then I use 1 cup of salt. So what I do is I take a bottle like this, which is a cup, and I keep this as my measuring stick, and I'll put one of these in, even though I may buy my Shad Keeper in bulk. Put one of these in, and then I'll fill it up with 1 of salt, and now I'm in perfect concentration of salt. When I use that, I said I use tap water to fill my tank. What I do is I take and use the liquid chlorine remover, and I use the cap as a measuring device. I just turn it over, and I pour a cap full, and I used 1 cap full for each 10 gallons of water.
How long should I let it set before I actually put bait in there? Does it take a while for that stuff to
plug in your pump, and by the time you fill it up and the time you get to the marina to launch your boat, you're gonna be in good shape.
Okay.
Now, one of the other things that's a very necessary evil is that shad and salt water and the fish poop makes a lot of foam. And what you got to do, you need to remove the foam. There's many ways. There's the old way that if you're out of foam off is to use a coffee decreamer. I don't recommend it.
French vanilla works pretty good.
French vanilla works good. Well, your tank might smell a little better.
Yeah.
But on foam off, if you use very sparingly, no more than 3 drops at a time. Drop about 3 drops in it. Watch the foam, and if it doesn't dissipate, wait a few seconds and add a couple more drops, and you'll find that you'll be in really great shape. A bottle of foam off will last you for multi-years if you don't let it freeze on you.
Okay.
The last thing, not the last thing, but one of the things that is nice that I use a secondary pump to pump my tank out when I get done, and it's very important that you clean your tank out after each and every use, and that you leave the lid up, then let it dry out, because if you close the lid on your bait tank and you leave it out and the heat gets to it, you've absolutely created the best incubator in the world for algae and bacteria to grow into your bait tank, and come back and you'll find you may have a good crop of moss and algae in it. So pump out your tank, dry it out, leave the lid up, let it breathe. And while we're talking about leaving the lid up, and you've got bait in here, once you got your bait, and you decide you're going to go have breakfast with your sweet significant other, just put a dip net handle or something to prop that lid up, let that tank breathe. And why do we want to do this? We want to do this because we're aerating, we're forcing air in the bottom of the tank with our pump. We're in minuscule bubbles. Excuse me. And those minuscule bubbles do two things. It lets the oxygen and the aeration go upward, and it also brings up the ammonia, CO2, and we want that to dissipate out of the tank. And if it doesn't dissipate out of the tank, then we've kind of defeated our purpose of what we're doing. So the only time that I'm saying that you should have this lid really latched is when you're underway or you're on the trailer, and when you're out fishing, leave the lid up and let it breathe and let it go. Especially if you decide you're going to go have breakfast, as I stated before, and that's the most important part about fishing, is going to have that breakfast. Now, to clean out the tank, I said I use an auxiliary pump to pump out, but we also have we fit every tank with a hole and with a drain plug that comes right out of here, and that makes it really easy to tip the tank up, take a garden hose, flush it out with water real good, and you've got your tank really nice and clean, ready for the next trip. If you're going to use tap water, getting back a bit, if you're going to use tap water, make yourself a routine that you do, and I find, of course, I'm sure you're not as old as I am, because only dirt's older than I am. But, whenever you go to fill up your bait tank, set your chemicals up on the tank to where you
won't forget
absolutely do not forget them.
If you forget the chlorine, it'll kill your bait, sure enough.
Well, do it real quick. So what you want to do is I always set my liquid chlorine remover up there. I fill up my tank, I put my salt in it, and the last thing I do is I put this on. Now you could put it in when you start to fill. It'll all mix up together, but that's just kind of the habit that I do, and it works, and it works well. Let's see, what else we got?
Well, I think that pretty much covered it. And then some. Well, thank you very much, George.
Well, my pleasure, and thank you. And folks, I want to say to you, have great fishing. Protect our lakes. Obey the laws. It'll be good for your kids, your grandkids, and people will be proud of you. You shine out as an example of what you do on the lake as a fisherman. So you see some slob throwing something overboard, you don't want to be known as that. We're fishermen. We take care of our own.
Thank you very much.